Good afternoon, and for some of you, good morning. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to today's session entitled The Talent Revolution Reimagining the Future of Talent in the AI Era. My name is Det Arwego, and I am the Managing Director of Assessment Analytics. We are the authorized distributor of SHL here in the Philippines. And I am really excited to be with my colleagues, Kika Tambunan, Managing Director of SHL Indonesia, and Kyoto-san, Executive Officer at SHL Japan. This is the first time that AAI is partnering with our neighboring distributors in offering a webinar. Now, you might be wondering why the topic of AI. AI has been quite a buzzword here in the Philippines, and I am sure it has been the same in your regions as well. And just like anything new, it has generated a feeling of fear for some on how this could affect us and the way we work, but for others, they are also quite excited to see the positive impact this could bring to the world of talent. So, on behalf of Assessment Analytics, I would like to thank in advance our speaker from SHL and SHL Labs, Kuldeep Yadav, for sharing his thoughts and expertise on how AI can significantly impact our talents and talent management. I am excited to hear what are already out there and what else we can look forward to. But before that, let me first call on Ms. Kika Tampunan to say a few words.
So nice hearing you, Dad, and everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. Greetings from Jakarta, from SHL Indonesia. My name again is Mariska Tambunan or Kika, as Dad called me. I'm the Managing Director of SHL Indonesia. Selamat siang and apa kabar? Thank you so much for being here. So today we are going to talk about the AI. Last week, I came across a post in regards to AI. Several educators shared concern over the ChatGPT as threat to learning. The post turned out to be great to myself, given that the one in the middle who sat in the fireside brought an idea to twist the plot. Well, ChatGPT and AI is unavoidable, and having experienced that, we could find new ways of doing things. We could ask the student, said the teacher, one of the teacher, to why not first build their article using the ChatGPT and then bring the article to the classroom for further process of editing, fine-tuning, and perfecting the article. The AI then became the tool to elevate rather than the other way around. I really love that idea, and maybe some of you have come across similar feats somewhere. So, same as that and all my colleagues here, I'm so excited to be here. And absolutely, I'd like to thank my fellow from AAI Philippines, Dad, Carol, and all the team, the one who initiates this event. Also to our dear friend from SSL Japan, and also grateful to have Kuldeep Yadav, Ayesha Kapoor, and our lovely Hamlata Bora to make this happen. So enjoy the show and be active and take your part, or as Indonesians say, ambil bagian, diskusi, and kita pergunakan, and then we can follow up after this, the conversation with you, each of you. And right now, I'm sending the mic to our friend from SSL Japan. We have Kyoda-san, the Executive Director of SHL Japan, is here. Kyoda-san, the turn is yours. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Kika. Thank you, and Dad. So, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. I am Shigeru Kiyota, and then I am Executive Officer at SHL Japan. So, I am one of the oldest people working at SHL around the world. So this year, I've been working here for 30 years as a HR consultant. I appreciate the opportunity to address you from Japan. today. I will speak Japanese from here on. So, 皆さんどうもありがとうございます。特に日本のからご参加いただいた皆さん、本当にありがとうございます。今日、私たち日本 SHL が、アセスメントアナリティクスのフィリピンの、メンバーと、あと SHL インドネシアの皆さんの、ご協力のおかげで、私たちもこういういいウェビナーに参加させていただいております。日本において、日本 SHL は、ほとんど採用テストだとかで知られていて、HR の領域における新しい研究、なかなか皆さんに見せる機会ありませんけれども、今日はSHL ラボの、カルディープさんからの、プレゼンテーションで SHL が AI を活用した新しいテクノロジーを使ってどんなことをやろうとしているかをお見せすることができる非常にいい機会だと思っています。特に、今日本 SHL ジャパンは SHL のグループの傘下に入り、私たちの新しいビジネスのあり方を皆さんにこうイメージしていただくとてもいい機会だと思って、この機会を、使わせていただきました。私もこのウェビナー本当に楽しみにしています。So, please enjoy this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyoto-san, for the lovely introduction. Thank you, Kika and Det. I welcome all the participants on today's webinar, focusing on reimagining the future of talent in the era of artificial intelligence and how the talent revaluation is going on. A quick introduction of our speaker, Mr. Kuldeep Yadav. He's a Senior Vice President and leads SHL Labs and Artificial Intelligence team. He's based in Gurgaon, India. His team works to implement artificial intelligence-backed innovation in SHL platforms, assessments, and products to help customers hire the best and diverse candidates. He's a PhD in computer science and previously worked in Xerox Research and Microsoft Research Labs. He comes with more than 10 years experience in building artificial intelligence products and R&D, and he has more than 20 years experience in research publication in top AI conferences and has more than 10 plus granted patents and pending applications. Over to you, Kuldeep.
Hey, thank you, Hemlata, for your kind introduction. Hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Okay, let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Please confirm once if you can see my screen. Yeah, now.
It's visible now, yes.
Okay, I think this is... No.
Yes.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hemlata, for kind introduction. SHL Indonesia, Japan, and AI for inviting me here. Really appreciate. And we're going to spend next 30 to 40 minutes going through this incredible revolution that is taking place in talent. And I don't think there is a day goes by when this keyword artificial intelligence or AI does not get talked about today, right? Forget the media, even in the peer-to-peer conversation. So in next 30 to 40 minutes, we are going to uncover what's going on specifically in talent, in HR, what we should be looking forward to, what is it excitement, is it fad, right? All of those things that will be taking place. Throughout this webinar, please feel free to ask as many questions as you want. You can use the chat option here to put down your questions, and at the rear end, we'll take up some of those questions and answer those. Okay, let's get started. This is broadly that is the agenda that we are going to follow in this webinar. Specifically, what is Gen AI, and Gen AI means generative AI, and why it is so special, right? What's the sort of impact that we will see in the overall talent life cycle related to Gen AI? And of course, then we will be coming back to HSL Labs, how HSL Labs and my team is playing a huge role in shaping up this talent life cycle or the upgraded talent life cycle. And we will end with some key takeaways as well as some questions. Now, so first thing first, when people talk about AI, and one thing that is talks about is that the pace of innovation, right? And people think that, okay, this AI has taken place in last 2-3 years, and what's going on? It's such fast paced. I'm hearing a new news every time I wake up, basically, right? So I think just to deconstruct that phenomena, one thing to note that is that the AI, artificial intelligence as a field, is almost 70 years old. In 1950s, during World War II, and after that, right, Alan Turing has basically devised a Turing test, which is basically that someone will be building a machine, and if you go and have a conversation with machine, either visually or auditorily or using textual messages, you will not be able to figure out whether I'm talking to a machine or a real human, right? So that's a Turing test at a very broad level. Right from 1950s, we have till 2023, right? How this is a 70-year long fight to bring real AI live, right? Now, progress has been extremely slow, at least till 2012. Right, when there is a deep neural network started coming into the picture, and you can see, right, and that is where the whole hype is all about, that we were seeing some 2x growth in 6 years, right? And this is the growth between for the parameters, like how much of knowledge is encapsulated into the models that are coming up. Like, for example, ChatGPT is one sort of model, or a GPT-3 or GPT-4. And parameters is just a very, in loose sense, a notion of intelligence that is embedded, very loose sense. So it's a correlation, not causation. So now, if you look at in just last 10 years, the amount of growth that we have had is phenomenal. It's unpredictable. Nobody predicted that this is going to be such a fast-paced thing where you will see innovation on a day-to-day basis, because we were seeing innovation on a decade basis before that, right? So that is what the whole hype is about, that the kind of intelligence that we have seen in last 2 years itself is mind-blowing. Right. Now you might argue and say that, okay, why this is the right time? Like, what makes this time so unique? And why are we seeing this phenomena, right? And if you pay attention to the why now piece of it on the left side, it is basically 3 things which come together at the right time and right place, right? One thing is GPUs, which is really high computing capacity, using GPUs and CPUs, democratized using cloud, right? So anybody can buy any amount of compute capacity today through AWS, Azure, and many other cloud providers, right? Also, this has got access to the data, like all of the internet. We have spent so much time writing content on the internet. Suddenly, AI can learn from all of that. All the videos that we have posted on TikTok, YouTube, all the podcasted that we've recorded, all the webinars that we've recorded, all the text that we've written on websites. So suddenly AI can take a look at those and learn something of its own. And of course, the third thing is that algorithms like neural networks and deep learning, I'm sure all of you are hearing about that, have obviously improved over time. So these 3 things basically create that AI phenomena that we are seeing today. Now, what it is leading to? It is leading to a very incredibly good at generating text, images, and videos, right? I mean, things are at a level where today, if you have a piece of a paragraph generated from AI, it's very, very hard to distinguish by human eye whether it's a AI generated or a human has written it. It's not possible, right? As we will see, as we go into the next decade, entire software stack will be rewritten. And I'm going to, in the next slide, I'm going to talk about how that is being rewritten, how the software stack has to be revisualized in the AI era. And that is way more than a talent or HR industry can take a look at it, just the pure software stack. And the third thing is obviously there is a large foundational models which have come in, and foundational model is these large models, right, which can't be trained by single individual human beings. Only the large corporation, at least till now, can do that, right? Okay, so now we will talk about briefly about 2 minutes and say AI in software. Like if you look at entire software industry, right, and just take ourselves out from the HR or talent preview for a little bit, what's taking place, right? So for example, traditionally the software used to work in a very simple fashion, which is like, hey, you bring in the data or inputs, and you bring set of rules how you manipulate that data. Like you go to a Microsoft Excel, you put in some numbers, hey, I want to apply addition function on that, and you get an output, right? Very simple story. And that's how programs were written. Oh, you are doing an assessment, please bring the input of what the candidate has selected it, and I will compute the score, right? That's how it used to work. In the AI or machine learning era, this has been changed. So here, no, you don't have to write the program as such, right? At least not to manipulate the input, which is like you bring the data, you bring the input, and you also bring the output that you would like to see, and I will learn the program. Or basically the probabilities, right? So basically you say, hey, this is the person, this is the audio of a person, I rate him or her on 4 out of 5 for a rubric scale on English pronunciation, right? That's the data that you need. Then the machine will learn basically how that input can be transformed for next person and evaluate the pronunciation, for example, right? And you will see more examples in the next slide. One question that I think, of course, a lot of you get asked, as well as a lot of you wonder that, okay, what is special or what is the difference between traditional AI and the Gen AI, which is generative AI, right? In traditional AI, I mean, of course, the way you should look at it is that not traditional AI versus Gen AI. It is the way you should look at it is the evolution of AI. We had some set of algorithms, some set of practices which has evolved into a generative AI. That's how the right way to look at it. But if you want to see, okay, what sort of differences that it has caused, this is where it is, right? So initially, when we were trying and building AI algorithms, like maybe 10 years back, we used to collect this data, right? And it used to take a lot of time to build a new AI algorithm or a model, basically, where you always need, okay, let's say you wanted to build a very simple engine to say, hey, given sentence is positive, negative, or neutral in terms of sentiment, right? And then you have to collect a lot of these sentences as well as get humans to rate those positive, negative, neutral. So this whole exercise used to take like months and years to do it, right? And of course, the system can't scale across different sentences, different languages, and all of that. It used to take a lot of time, and that's where the progress was really slow. What changed in Gen AI is that there's something called self-supervised learning, which says that, look, right, if you have a sentence like we go to work by train, on internet anywhere, I will take that sentence, I will mask a keyword from that, right, or a word from that, and then I will try to predict that. So I don't need human rated data. I can basically take any data on the internet, be it be sentences, words, videos, images, programming codes, anything, and I will keep masking small set of input, and then I will try to predict that. And while I do that, I will learn how sentences are written, how grammatically correct sentences are written, how programmatically correct codes are written, how does the good images looks like, how does the bad images looks like, and that's what it does, right? For example, the image that you see, it learns the work, but it also learns the work from a variety of sentences. Like, okay, in what context the word work can take place. Like, for example, it can be balance of work and personal life, or it could be going to work, or like roof at work or there are different scenarios that it can learn automatically given the data, right? So that's what the revolution is all about. Now, what is so I think there's one word that you keep hearing all about, which is called foundational models, which is really large models. So like, for example, I'm sure all of you heard about GPT-4, GPT-3, ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is just a wrapper on those, but GPT-3, 4, are sort of foundational model. You might have heard about DALL-E, which can generate images. That's a foundational model. So foundational model is this really large model which is trained with months of work and millions of dollars. So it's really computationally intensive to train. So only few people can do it at this point of time. What they can enable is that they can generalize across different tasks. They can adapt to different tasks, right? So the earlier, even for simple thing, we have to build a custom AI model to do whatever, like the sentence categorizer thing that we talked about. We wanted to build a custom model there, and it takes time. But now when the model is trained, it can do a lot of tasks by its own. You don't need to really train the model, right? And some of the well-known example, as you can see, is the OpenAI GPT family models, 3.5, 4, 3, DALL-E, Codex, and all of these. There are models which are text only. There are models which are images only. There are models which is mix of both, which is text and images both, right? Like, for example, the one that came in GPT right now is a multimodal model. So this is what is happening broadly. I will take a minute and say, okay, what's the impact of these foundational models on talent, for example? So let's say we will take a very simple application saying that, okay, you wanted to build an assessment that can evaluate English grammar, right? That was the, right? In a usual 2010 era, we would have collected a lot of sentences, grammatically correct or incorrect, get a human rated, and then generate an engine which can actually figure out what scores to give and how to evaluate the grammar. But in the foundational model era, or in the era that we are living in right now, I don't need to really do that. It used to be a long pipeline. Now, my first steps of just detecting the grammar errors is simple. Any foundational model today can do it, right? The only thing that I need to work on as an assessment builder is that I can take those grammar errors from a foundational model and train my own small model, which can, looking at grammar error, and can give a score, right? So my efforts, which used to be like years, are now reduced to pretty much months or even weeks, right? So that's where they provide an incredible platform to build on the top of that. Okay, so impact of Gen AI in the talent lifecycle. So now we are going to, till now what we have talked about it is, in general, how does AI revolution is taking place, what you should be hearing about, how you should be talking about, and basically deconstructing the whole thing. And obviously I will be looking at some of the questions later on. So really excited to have those questions also on that piece of thing. Now we're going to focus on the impact of Gen AI in talent lifecycle. So let's go about that. Like, what's the impact that it can play in today's talent lifecycle? And specifically, we are going to look at talent acquisition, but obviously I will be touching couple of points on talent management also during my conversation. So one thing that is going to take place is skill shift. So now you have heard about those foundational models, right? Which can do really nicely. Like, for example, they can negotiate with somebody to find a scheduled task, right? There are a lot of jobs which involves very mundane work, like BPOs, right? Where a lot of BPO calls get shifted from voice to chat, and chat to basically automatic bots, right? So there is a skill shift. There are tasks which are getting automated. So like, for example, there are different studies on this, right? So there is, for example, the most important was the World Economic Forum study. You can pay attention in the middle part of this slide, which says that 83 million jobs are projected to be lost, and which exist today, by in next 5 years or so. And but out of those, 69 millions are going to be created also. So whenever there's a large scale technology disruption takes place, a lot of jobs go away, but also there are new jobs which gets created. Like, for example, one of the really interesting example is this AI data annotation services, like hiring people to kind of label your data. Didn't used to be an industry, but it's like multi-billion industry right now, which didn't used to exist 10 years back. So So that is going to happen, but there are other things like, for example, like Philippines is a big hub of BPOs, right? Like in BPOs specifically, there is a large scale skill disruption will take place where low level tasks will go away. Like for example, agents needing to write a call description or a call summary after the call has ended, pretty much that can be done through AI. So AI can tap into the conversation during when conversation is talking to the customer is talking to an agent, and then write a summary which agent can take a look and say, okay, that's fine, right? So that saves time, right? And when it saves time, agent can take more calls, right? And that basically reduces the number of agents that you have to hire, right? So the way we should look at it is that every job can be broken down into some set of tasks. All of us job is basically some set of tasks that we do on day-to-day basis. Which of these tasks are more prone to the automation, or which of these tasks are not prone to automation? Like for example, if it is just, for example, taking this webinar and generating a summary, that task pretty much can be done by Gen AI today, right? So that task will not exist tomorrow. But having to negotiate with somebody, negotiating salary with a candidate, that sort of task is still not automated by Gen AI. So that's human still remains there, right? So those are sort of things that we need to see and imagine it to be. Okay, so we'll have a quick poll right now, and I think there's a poll right now going in. Please select your where we are looking at, and we will have some things in the next slide. So please provide your inputs on which of the talent lifecycle steps that you see in specifically in acquisition, where AI is going to play a transformative role, right? Okay, I will give you a minute to do that. It's pretty interesting how humans are negotiating different stages of talent acquisitions and AI's role into it. So I could see some real time there. Okay, we will move on. Okay. Yeah. So these are the key areas of AI in talent acquisition. Some of these are emerging, right? Some of these you might have seen it, right? So I will just say stop sharing. I don't need to share the results. We can do it later. Sourcing. I think this is one thing that I'm sure a lot of people I saw selecting. Sourcing, which is finding where there's a right candidate pool, writing inclusive job description. So there is, like, you keep hearing about AI's impact on diversity and inclusion. And this is one which is a very positive impact, where AI can actually help you write better job description, which actually attract diverse candidates also, right? So second, where we are very, very excited is the screening, right? So now if you look at it, if you don't have a really good screening method, right, then the candidate's application just lingers on, right, and goes on weeks and months, right, waiting on ATSs. So one way where the innovation is taking place is, of course, resume matching has been around for a while, but all of us know that what are the pitbacks or fallbacks of resume matching, because a lot of time candidates overstate their achievement and right, and it doesn't do a good job of matching with the job description. But it's a good filter, but there are obviously limitations to that. Now there are chatbots that you are seeing around for specifically for volume hiring, but you're also seeing quick for job fit screening, right? And we're going to show you one such solution that SSL Labs is building to quickly screen somebody for the job fit, so that the candidate gets to hear really quickly whether they're really good fit for a job or not. Right, assessments, again, SSL has been really, really big on this, right? And we have all sort of assessments. We have been providing AI assessment from more than a decade now, and different set of assessment that you see from us as well as other providers. So there is a huge AI's role in assessments. This is a new emerging use case of which is interviews, right? And you will hear more about it, but largely the activity that we are seeing with respect to Gen AI and AI is that scheduling is getting automated to a large extent, building structured interviews. There is large focus on structured interviews today, interviewing notes, automatic notes creation like that is happening for this webinar, right? And debriefs and looking deeply what are the skills or predictive of the job success, right? Because interview is very critical in this whole life cycle. And then you see others places also, right? Like for engagement after offer, onboarding and all of that, right? And of course there are steps which actually goes across different steps in this life cycle. For example, proctoring is very, very critical in this era, right? To make sure that there's the right candidate who is taking the test, right? Engaging the candidate, making sure that they don't drop out from the process. So this is the bigger horizon of how different areas are taking place in AI with respect to talent acquisition. Now, this is going to be focus for the later part of my discussion, which is we are going to focus on these three buckets and see how AI is disrupting the space in screening, assessments, and interviews. Now we are going to have a very second poll on this one, which is like just to understand, like typically, and now you've given your input on the first one. Now this is what is biggest apprehension that you see inside your teams, or when you talk to your colleagues, or when you talk to your business owners. If you're an HR or a talent person and you talk to your business owners, what is the biggest apprehension that you have seen with respect to AI? Okay, so I think very, very interesting. So we are seeing some of the topmost concern that I see is with respect to data privacy and security concerns and algorithmic biases. And the third one is obviously responsible AI practices. So, right. So very interesting. Thank you for your inputs, and we will go into the next phase of the presentation. So one of the way you can deal with algorithmic biases as well as data security and privacy concern, as well as the third one, which is responsible AI practices, is by implementing responsible AI practices. So any technology is going to have a disruptive impact, but I think the thing that we could do is we can understand the impact, we can understand the effectiveness, and then take the right measures around it. So for example, one way where we do it internally inside SHL is we have created this elaborate process of what can be AI enabled and what can't be AI enabled, right? So for example, we look at this very interesting model of three lagged model, which is platforms, people, and process. So if you look for an assessment solution in the market which is doing automated decision making using AI, I think you should ask, okay, how did you train your model? How did you provide human inputs to the model? How it is taking decisions, right? How much accurate that is? Is it creating adverse impact, right? So that's accuracy of the model across, not for aggregate accuracy, but the way you should look into is the demographic accuracy, which is like across different demographic groups, how your model is performing, right? So these are some of the questions. Again, they are never exhaustive. So the more you can ask questions, better it is. So we look at platforms like, again, AI models are something which is ever changing. So you can never rely on one snapshot of accuracy numbers. So that's why SHL monitors models or AI models continuously with their performance. And whenever we see a degrade in the performance, we actually retrain them. And that's where the AI makes a lot of difference, that it can take and learn from the data, right? We have a huge focus on people, right? Actually cross section of people. So basically in this case, AI operations, R&D engineers, and our psychometrics team works very closely together to see before a model can make live, or before a new assessment goes live, and during the phase also, right? And of course, you can look at the process standpoint. I heard, like, from your data security privacy perspective, there's a World Economic Forum checklist on AI with respect to HR tag. There's a SIOP guidelines also. So you can download some of those and then ask some of those questions before you make a buying decision with respect to AI. Now, okay, so now we are going to the next section, which is how SHL Labs is helping, and we're going to focus, as I told you, in the last phase, we are going to focus on screening, interviewing, and some of those use cases and assessment, basically, right? So one way where we are seeing a we are very bullish about generative AI is to transform the candidate experience. So now if you see, assessments have been, if you look at this, looks very familiar, which is a multiple choice assessment delivered, right? Candidate has to just select an option. We have been delivering that from last 20 years, right? And if you look at from an interactivity and immersiveness, right? Like today's generation is more visual heavy, right? So they want to look at next set of experiences with respect to assessment also. So this is a text-based assessment, typically, right? We are on a journey to make more visual heavy assessments, right? Where there's a set of interactive video, you can interact with it. So get more closer, learn more from more B2C systems like Instagram, right, and TikTok, where you can have more video during your assessment experience, to the level where even bullish about having a conversational AI-based assessment experience, where an AI avatar or a digital human basically helps you take the assessment, right, and kind of gives you a more empathetic, right, towards you. So you can the candidate can have a conversation with the avatar, even if they're facing some issues or want to clarify something. So there are, from a use case perspective, we see multitude of use cases with respect to our conversational avatar experience. One is basically, obviously, on-demand interviewing, which is very, very popular, that you don't have to talk to everybody. You just apply, you just send a on-demand interviewer, and interviewer just talks to the candidate and figures out the job fit. So that is one such. So for example, I will show you a live video how that conversation takes place. It's a synchronous conversation. I will play it.
Hi, I'm Sia, SHL's digital interviewer. I will be taking your interview today. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's get started. Why don't you begin by introducing yourself? Like, what are your hobbies, and what would you like to do in your free time?
I am Rupali Das and I love reading books in my free time.
Of course. I appreciate you sharing that with me. It's always beneficial to allocate a few moments to familiarize ourselves with one another. All right, let's dive into the next section. Here.
So this can, the avatar can do, so this is called Sia, SHL interviewer, where she can do ice-breaking conversation with the candidate, make them comfortable, and then also do a lot of assessment. Like, for example, she can ask situational behavioral questions like—
Now, I will give you a hypothetical, but a workplace-oriented situation. You are required to assess the situation and present your action plan. How do you plan to monitor the progress of new team members who are learning the job? How would you assess if they are meeting the expected standards?
So I would monitor.
I'll skip this thing in the interest of time, but she can also ask follow-up if there's a candidate response and she finds the response is not up to the mark, or there needs to be a follow-up, she can ask that follow-up. In this case, she can actually ask candidates questions. So candidate can have ask the questions about the job, like for example, like this.
Now, I would like to give you a chance to ask any questions or clarify anything related to the job role.
I wanted to know what are my job responsibilities.
Sure, thanks for letting me know. Your job responsibilities will include actively listening to customer needs, utilizing decision support tools, maintaining knowledge of company products and services, offering additional products and services, documenting information in a database, and referring to senior staff when appropriate.
So this is how the conversation takes place. Now we are actively deploying this sort of interviewer into the recruiting automation lifecycle. So the Gen AI is the left side is the Gen AI powered interviewer. She can be customized according to look and feel. It could be a male, it could be a female, it could be different demographic also. Visually it can look from different demographic perspective. You can customize the visual accent, spoken accent form, right? From a candidate perspective, I mean, of course, it is designed to keep candidate in center, which is looks at the provide next gen candidate experience, helps create equal opportunity. So we take out the resume from the picture and then say, hey, instead of, we don't have enough humans to talk, but let's say 1,000 people applied for a job position, CI is going to talk to all those 1,000 people, explain the job, do some basic assessment, also do basic screening, which is like, hey, if it is a BPO job, can you work in night shift and all of that? And all of these insights come together, and in the end, the hiring manager or recruiter can take very, very quick decisions in the end, right? So that the candidate we reduces the number of the time spent that is in the overall hiring pipeline, where it spends like weeks of time to days and hours. So that's what SIA enables. Now, again, as I said, this is a journey. We are looking at Gen AI to empower candidate experience from multiple dimensions, including into multiple choice, to make them more interactive, more emerging. As you can see here, we are looking into simulations, right? Like you see on the right side, it's a gamified simulation where she introduces the simulation to the candidates and basically take them through it. Coding assessment, as you can see on the bottom part of the screen, and all of that, right? So this is one of the impact that we're going to see Gen AI on a talent lifecycle, is that overall candidate experience is going to be so much better when the digital humans kick in and all of that. Now we are going to take a look at the second part of the thing, which is we are going to focus on interviewing, because that's very critical for decision making and hiring good people. Now, if you look at job interviews specifically, right? I'm sure all of us have gone on this call, has gone through job interviews or have taken job interviews, right? If you look at it, right, how it started, right? So in 19th century, two people sat across a table and one person decided the other person's entry to an organization, right? In 20th century, it was also the same, pretty much, right? In 21st century, how is it going right now? Is that, okay, for most interviews have shifted to digital, right? Which is, there's a Zoom or a Teams or any other things, Smart Interview Live have come in between. But one thing that we can stop back and ask ourselves, are interviews objective today? Are our interviewers making the optimal decisions about candidates? Are they providing the right candidate experience to our candidates? What is happening? So, and that is where we have seen an opportunity. So this is a process which was physical for years, like almost 2 centuries, right, have shifted to digital, right? And whenever a process shifted to digital, you can do a lot more. You can say what's going on. Can I bring more transparency, visibility, right? Like one of the questions that I typically ask CHROs is that, hey, you conducted 10,000 interviews last year. How did they go? And often talent teams do not have the right visibility to answer those questions. And this is the problem that we want to solve. We want to make interviews more fairer, equitable than they are today. and while creating visibility for talent leaders. So you will see some of those examples here. And again, our approach has been a very simple. It's an approach which can be translated to any digital process, which is to measure, analyze, and change. Which is to measure what's going on, make actions happen, change something, right, after analysis, and then again measure. And it's a loop which keeps on going. Now, we need to understand before we go into interviewing and try and understand, okay, what should we be improving? We need to understand what's broken, right? Or what should we be measuring? And that's where we have conducted this large-scale study of 500,000 reviews that we have analyzed. So every time a candidate goes through a bad interview experience, they go to internet and they put it on Glassdoor, Indeed, Twitter, LinkedIn, right? So they write a piece of text there. And we thought that it would be great to analyze this text to figure out what is candidate feeling, what is happening, right? What are the things that they like, they don't like. And this sort of study was not done before. And that's where we saw an incredible opportunity to do that. So we analyzed 500,000 reviews. Interestingly, we also noticed that there's a 2x increase in the interview experience posting. So if there is one candidate posting or 100 candidates are posting before COVID, it's 200 candidates which are posting today. So there's an exponential increase in the number of people posting about their interview experience. Also, why you should care about this thing is that because 42% of declined offers are related directly to the negative interview experience that is provided. So it is in the best interest to the business and talent teams to see what's going on, how can I make my interview experience better? And to ask that question even, you need to have right visibility. And that's what we want to do. So we have published this white paper with our insights derived from 500,000 candidate reviews. Please take a look. You can just simply Google voice of candidate SHL and you will find this thing and you will have incredible insights. And please feel free to write to me any feedback that you have on this one. But just to give you a very quick preview of what does a negative experience and positive experience looks like from a candidate perspective, we used AI to extract these indicators. And if you look at negative experience specifically, lengthy process is the number one. Rude interviewer is the second one, right? Didn't switch on the web camera was one of the top 10 indicators of a candidate having a bad interview experience, right? All of these can be tracked with today's digital measurement, right? And that's what we actually done. We built a interview intelligence platform where every time an interview happens on our platform, we take that recording and then we process and extract some 35 plus signals from that recording, right? Which kind of summarizes how are the interviewer etiquette? Did the interviewer follow candidate-centric practices? Did the interviewer follow the right interview structure so that he or she made the sound decisions about it, right? Now, this is a snapshot of a live dashboard that you can see here. We generate these kind of statistics in real time from our interviews which are happening on our platform, which is answering. And this is a CHRO facing or a talent team facing dashboard where they can answer questions like, hey, how consistent are my interviews? Which business is doing consistent interviews and which business is not doing, or which job profile is doing consistent interviews and which are not, right? How are my interviewers spending their time on? Where they're spending time? Are they doing the right thing? I mean, I am prescribing some interview structure to them. Are they following that interview structure or not? How well they engage with the candidates? Like, for example, in this case, we have seen that more than 20% people didn't switch on their web camera, which was one of the top 10 indicators of having a negative interview experience. And the most important, which for talent teams, is that, hey, what do candidates inquire about? So if you look at the bottom right, what do candidates inquire about? These are stack ranked. So job role responsibilities, working culture, work-life balance. And again, it's just one part of the dashboard, but when you can go as deep as you want in this dashboard, you can figure out what are the sort of question that is asked, how my interviewers are responding to them, right? Which is the job profile that I need to improve on and all of that, right? So this is wealth of information that talent teams have today, thanks to AI, which they didn't have before. Now, we also uncovered, so when we're doing all of this analysis, we uncovered gender bias, for example. We uncovered that 42% female candidates are asked personal questions as opposed to 34% male candidates. So there are more female candidates subjected to personal question in interviews than male candidates. And also, it's a double-edged sword, which is 36% male interviewers ask personal questions, right? So it's a male interviewers who are likely to ask personal questions to the female candidates, right? So when you have visibility, you will have this sort of data to fix what's broken. Now, the last part, I mean, I think I will probably take maybe 2 minutes to go through the last part, which is about feedback. It's purely a talent management use case. I'm sure all of us have some sort of feedback implemented in our organization. And the idea here is that what can we do to make it better, right? And a lot of time, feedback is collected in terms of objective metric. Hey, I'm rating my team on collaboration 3 out of 5 or whatever. I'm rating my manager on empathy as 2 out of 5, and then everything gets averaged. And then the leaders gets like really average rating saying, hey, you are good on collaboration 3 out of 5, you are on empathy 2.9 out of 5, all of that, right? And the leaders do not have a clue what's going on, right? What decision should I take? Is 2.9 or 3 better, or should I be aspiring for 4.2 or 4.5 or 4.7, right? So there is no context in feedback, and that is what AI can bring. So we have built a system which can take this textual feedback, right, and map back to the competencies that they refer to. Like, for example, take this feedback that you see here, and that's automatically get mapped to consulting others, collaboration, which is a scope of improvement, and then other competencies, right? And when you can have these, you can build really deep level feedback loop with your leaders, so that you can provide, when you go back and say that, hey, take a look at feedback, we collected something from your team. Apart from the objective feedback, AI can help you cover deeply uncover insights from a lot of this textual feedback also. So that's a message that I want you to leave with. Okay, now finally another 1 minute to finally summarize, and then we'll definitely jump into questions. Key takeaways. Again, I think I'm sure all of you heard, I've said it multiple times during this conversation, is that it's a very transformative role that AI is playing, right? It is bringing you recruitment automation that you've seen through screener, interviewer, better transparency, visibility that talent team didn't have before. So that's a positive side, right? You can analyze all those interviews to figure out what's going on. New insights that you can uncover through feedback. Also, it's equally important to understand the nuances of AI solutions before deploying it, right? You need to ask really deep questions, and that the question you can figure out from World Economic Forum checklist, SIOP checklist that we have talked about earlier, right? To see how a vendor is building their models, how they're deploying it, how they're monitoring the performance of their models, because that's really important to build and deploy a responsible AI system in HR or any other domain, right? So also need to pay close attention to the country-specific regulatory frameworks. Unfortunately, there is none which works across different countries, so you need to really pay attention to your own country that you're deploying into. Right, talent teams, of course, needs to really pay close attention to the skill shift that will take place, and we already started seeing it now. Right, and it will continue to happen. So the only thing that we can do is to stay on the top of it, and instead of predicting it, we start following it very closely and anticipating some of that beforehand. Finally, this is the right time to plan your AI investment if you have not done it so. And obviously, SHL is leading the AI transformation. We have been doing it from last 10 years. It's not new thing for us. We are closely partnering with our customers, right? Because that's the key thing for us. SHL Labs, again, it's a R&D arm of SHL. We have 30 plus researchers, over 9 PhDs, work on different set of these things like psychometric science to technology. So it's a really nice combination of psychometrics and technology, obviously enabled through AI and metaverse. And I will stop here. You can connect me on LinkedIn, and right, I keep posting things about AI and HR tech. But yeah, I will leave it to Hemlata to if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Kuldeep. Thank you so much for this thought-provoking and insightful session. We have received a lot of questions. I'll start with the first question that we have received from Karen. He's asking, with the rise in use of AI, what are the critical competencies that HR practitioners can build and develop?
So this is about okay, I think I might have a follow-up about. So this is about the AI HR like HR practitioners of themselves, or they are talking about their bigger organization.
Karen, would you like to unmute yourself and share more of your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, hi, Kuldeep. This is really more of us as HR practitioners, because of course now we see that some functions are going to be replaced by AI.
Yeah.
AI as early as now. What critical skills do we need to develop in order to not be obsolete?
Absolutely. No, that's a really, really good question. I think probably the first skill that I see from a soft skill perspective is the adapt, which is to adapt to this new reality and accept that there's going to be change. That's one, definitely first one. Secondly, I think being data driven is going to be more and more important. So we are living in an era where pretty much every decisions of HR teams or any other teams is going to be scrutinized, right? Like why not, why that, and there is data always there to back it up right now than it ever was. So I think for me, adaptability, right, and looking to change, right, in this really rapidly evolving environment, and the data-driven insights and data-driven decision making is going to be key skills for HR teams.
Thank you, Kuldeep.
Thank you.
There's another question from Karen where she mentioned she's curious to know how's the feedback of the participants who've gone through this AI-driven interviews, because it may seem to lack empathy and that human touch and feel.
Absolutely. No, it's interesting, and we have conducted 1,000+ user studies across different participants. No, it actually makes a lot of difference on where you deploy this thing. Like, you can't deploy this thing today in the last phase of your interviewing, right? You can't. So we are deploying it in the early, which is the top of the funnel for screening. And no, now you look at what are the alternatives that candidates are going through there. Candidates are going through basic monotonous assessments, or they are not even going through anything. Their fate is pretty much being decided by resumes. So in our user studies and our feedback that we collected, actually candidates do like that they're getting an opportunity to present themselves, even though it's in front of a digital human, right? Whereas we do see some small percentage of candidates complaining about it or not liking about it, but there's a large percentage of candidates actually do love to talk about it. For example, just a data point, we deployed one such in deployment, right, and we expected that at the max candidate is going to talk about 10 to 15 minutes, for 10 to 12 minutes for this AI interviewer. It was so surprising for me to see the data when on an average we're seeing 22 minutes, which is double of what we anticipated. So candidates were just loving talking to an AI interviewer.
Right. We have similar question from Julieta where she's asking, can AI show empathy to a candidate who is going to resign, or as an HR conversation would have? So can that empathy be shown to the HR, to the participant?
It does. I would not say that you can control it through different variables. Like, you can control it through the emotions, you can control through the dialogues that the avatar is speaking. So you can definitely show the empathy. I mean, right now the way AI models from a technology capability perspective are very assertive. They agree with you pretty much anything that you say, because they're trained in that way, not to argue against you. So they pretty much agree to anything that you say. So I mean, this is one thing that as an AI practitioner, we need to fix, that the models has to be more neutral, right? Rather than just agreeing on anything. Like, if you talk to ChatGPT and you say, hey, 2 + 2 = 4 is incorrect, probably it will agree, saying, oh yeah, maybe you're right? Even for a factual answer like that. So I think that's going to be a journey. We are not saying definitely right now that AI models are capable to drive difficult conversations like salary negotiation, like exit interviews. They're difficult conversations to be had. They are not ready for that, right?
I think there's a question from SHL Indonesia. I think the one from Marcelita, which from PT Kapal Api Global. She is asking for, we all know there's two type of AI, traditional and generative one. So there's two questions. First one is, while the traditional AI relies on explicit programming, generative AI leverage learning from data to make decision. So the question is, in the current era, which one is better to apply to talent acquisition, especially in sourcing, screening, which has a human touch? And the second one is, how can we ensure the generative AI models developed in human capital, especially in talent acquisition or recruitment, are transparent, accountable, and free from bias? Perhaps, there's some fairness issues in generative AI. Thank you, Kuldeep.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good question. Very good question. So I think the way we should, and that's where I'm saying the way we should not look at traditional AI versus generative AI as an isolation, it's an evolution. So the way we should see, okay, which use case is fit for what? Like, for example, if I have to send some candidate feedback about something, right? And probably a generative AI makes more sense, which any generative AI input needs to be monitored. So there needs to be always a human in loop. Right, that you need to say. In typically traditional AI practices, like, because we have, as you know, assessment is a long adopter of traditional AI, there's a better control in terms of what, at the best, it can always do a fallback saying, I don't know, or whatever, right? Generative AI doesn't tend to do that much. So it can hallucinate, it can do false information, it can do bias also. Where bias might happen in both the cases, by the way. So it's not really. So I think the thing that we need to question ourselves is that we need to have the same set of questions, which is purely from a candidate perspective, right? To both set of systems, right? Which is like, hey, what's the data that you have trained on? Right? Or what's the data? If it is a large model, what's the data that you have fine-tuned it to, or like whatever, like adapted it to, right? And is it for a large cross-section of people? Like if I take a candidate pool, is it providing me a fair rating, right? And that you can easily measure. So I think you need to look for evidence before adopting any of the AI systems. One thing that we can take a look at it is that there are a lot of things which are human in loop, right? Like, for example, people analytics solutions, right? Where a human is taking the final decision, right? In that case, you are okay with not asking so many questions, but just giving it to the human, saying that, look, you need to do a good job of reviewing the outputs of AI.
Thank you,
Okay,
Kuldeep.
thank you. I received a text message. This is an interesting question for you, Kuldeep. She's asking, how can we identify individuals who are using AI to deceive and succeed in interviews and assessments, as both companies and candidates are evolving? So how do we identify these imposters or evolved candidates?
Yeah. So I think the way I see it is that I think this question is about, I'm assuming that this question is about candidate using AI to solve assessment. And so, yeah, this is going to be a real concern. We haven't discussed this extensively during this talk, but yeah, it's a real concern. And obviously there are solutions. So it's going to be a cat and mouse situation always, that we need to be deploying a lot more solutions to mitigate that. For example, like a couple of things that SHL has is obviously a strong proctoring suite of solution where you can enable proctoring so that the candidate always works in a secure environment and they can't take data out and inside that. Having said that, you can also look at other ways. So one way we are looking at it is the building assessments, which are ChatGPT proof, like where it's not a single decision that you have to take, but a multitude of decisions or a simulation, right? And they can't be really solved by AI in near future because they involve multiple decisions to take. And if somebody wants to adapt to AI to a simulation, it's a lot of work to do. Right. So basically looking at it from a different perspective, looking at immediate as well as long-term measures. And obviously there's a longer answer to that, which I'm not getting into.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you so much, Kuldeep, for your time today. And it was a very interesting discussion. I myself made a lot of notes, and I see a lot of questions which are coming in from our participants today. In case we have not answered any of your questions, just feel free to reach out to your SHL relationship manager, or you can write to us also. Um, so since we are on time for today's discussion, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to support you in your talent journey going further.